Wonderful. Thanks, Kirsten. And as you all probably just got a notification, we will be recording this session, and ImpactPHL will make it live and available within 48 hours. So if you want to rewatch or share with anyone that is interested, please look out for that from us. Okay, so I am thrilled to learn alongside all of you in this conversation between Tiara, Caitlin, and Emeka on what it looks like to unlock a spectrum of capital for impact-driven initiatives. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce our moderator for today, Tiara Durham with Founders First Capital.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation with our esteemed panel today. My name is Tiara Durham, and I am with Founders First Capital Partners. And we're a mission-based company focused on helping diverse-led businesses scale through access to capital, growth accelerators, as well as social relationships that help them move their initiatives forward. We are based in San Diego, but we're a national company, and I'm based right here in Philadelphia. And I have the pleasure of focusing on East Coast business development. And I'm excited to bring Caitlin Murphy and Emeka Oguh to the table today to have a conversation around what it means to have the right type of capital in the impact investing and the actual impact that can have on the community and the economy. So I'd like to turn it over first to Caitlin for a quick introduction, and then Emeka, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you today. My name is Caitlin Murphy, here representing the City of Detroit and the Live 6 Alliance, which is a community development organization working in Northwest Detroit. I have been with Live 6 since 2017, and as of the new year, am sitting in the interim executive director role.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emeka Oguh. I'm the founder and CEO of PeopleJoy, based in Philadelphia. We're a financial wellness company with a heart for helping others. We partner with employers looking for solutions to attract and retain talent, address the gender and racial wealth gaps, and promote mental and financial wellness using student loan assistance as an employee benefit.
Thank you. Thank you. So just to give everyone an idea of what we'll cover today, the conversation is really focused around impact-driven initiatives, and we have two great examples, leaders in their specific areas to talk about that today. We'll talk about the different types of capital that they've raised in the past or seeking to raise in present or future, some of the challenges and roadblocks that they've experienced along the way, and specifically, what do investors need to know in order to make decisions around how to best support them. So with that, I'd like to kick it off and start with Caitlin. Caitlin, can you share a little bit more with us about Live 6 and what are some of the impact-driven initiatives that you all have undertaken recently?
Absolutely. So the Live 6 Alliance is a focused place-based neighborhood activation organization. We are working on some commercial corridor development projects, as well as some small business initiatives and support services. We work in the intersection of West McNichols, which is more colloquially referred to as 6 Mile, and Livernois, which is historically the Avenue of Fashion. And so those two roads are the crossroads for the service area in which we are working along the main commercial corridors, but then in the surrounding residential communities. In 2019, we opened a community storefront, which serves as a collaborative co-working space. When we first opened, we were hosting a number of different pop-up shops, community dinners, engagement sessions, some visual exhibits in partnership with artists and architects, and we've really sort of grown out of the space. And so now we're working on developing the property right adjacent to us, another commercial storefront, into a small business incubator and marketplace. So since our inception in 2015, we've hosted outdoor markets, farmers markets and artisans, as well as indoor holiday markets. And so we have a pretty good pipeline of small micro businesses and local entrepreneurs that we've been working with. And we're really excited to be able to provide them with a more permanent place on our developing corridor so that they can have that brick and mortar experience and hopefully scale and grow into other retail opportunities that are coming down our pipeline for the McNichols corridor.
Thank you for that. And really interesting to understand how you've taken something like the 6 mile and changed the trajectory of what the perceptions around that in the past and what it can mean for the future.
Absolutely. We are really a developing corridor. So when we started we were focusing in on a 6 or 7 mile block, and there were only a handful of operational businesses that were open to the public. So we have a long-standing barber college, a newer coffee shop, and a couple of hair salons. But for the most part, our corridor, even today, remains about 60% vacant. And so through some of these catalytic investments and projects, our job and our goal was to really attract private investors to rehab some of the storefronts that have sat vacant for decades. And we're partnered with a number of community development financial institutions and other philanthropic partners that are helping subsidize some of these developments, which are very costly considering the buildings have been vacant for so long.
Awesome. And just curious if you have some feedback around what the businesses that have been able to experience that think about what you all are doing in the community.
Yeah, so we have great relationships with all of the property owners as well as the business owners. And to be honest, we're struggling right now with foot traffic in the area and bringing customers and clientele to our section of the city, right? So as I mentioned, Livernois has been anchored by Black-owned businesses for decades, and there aren't a lot of vacancies along Livernois, and we have achieved that density and interest in that district through programming over the years, as well as just having some really strong anchor businesses. However, on 6 Mile, we're trying to pull some of the momentum and pull some of the resources over so that we can really create the walkable and destination district that we need to achieve in order for some of these businesses to really thrive and grow. And so our unique storefront opportunity is hopefully going to be another one of those catalysts where we can incubate. We're looking to start off with 30 to 40 micro entrepreneurs in one shared storefront, and then tap into their networks and their spheres of influences to really get more people into our corridor to not only support our businesses, but all of those that are along the corridor.
Thank you for that. So let's turn to Emeka. Share more with us about some of the impact-driven initiatives that you're working on.
Yeah, so I think impact is sort of obviously really important to us. It's our mission. It's our battle cry. If you look at the name PeopleJoy, it's really about that pursuit of happiness. How do we help people pursue financial freedom by removing the roadblocks to wealth creation? If you look at the Declaration of Independence, and this is again shouting out to our originating from Philly, it says that everyone is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unfortunately, at that time, we were being thrown into debtor's prison by the British, so it's hard to pursue happiness and financial wealth from jail. Student debt is today's debtor's prison. It's preventing people from saving for retirement, from buying homes, and it really is just disproportionately impacting women and minorities. So one of the areas that we're focused on when we work with our workforce partners is supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everyone's familiar with the 1.74 trillion of student debt. It's a common topic for debate. We've got the Biden forgiveness right now that everybody's sort of hoping with bated breath gets passed. But what most people don't know is that women hold nearly 2/3 of that 1.74 trillion. And the reason why that's important is that a lot of employers are not just looking at how do we address the racial wealth gaps, it's how do we address the gender wealth gaps. And so you have a situation where women are coming out with more student debt because they're getting more advanced degrees than their male counterparts. At the same time, in many industries and in many job roles, still getting paid less on the dollar than their male counterparts. So you have this compound effect of I'm getting paid less on the dollar. I have more student debt for this advanced degree, but I have to save for retirement at the same rate. It's not as if retirement is going to be any cheaper for a woman and when they retire than a man. And so that wealth gap grows over time because you're not getting that compound interest of your investment income. And so when we're helping with employers, is working with employers, is how do we really help resolve that gender wealth gap by providing student loan solutions, because we know that they're disproportionately going to impact women. The same can be said for minorities. The Brookings Institute ran a study that showed that the wealth gap between white and Black households between the ages of 25 and 40 years old was 12x. When you removed student debt from the equation and really reevaluated that wealth gap, it shrunk to 5x. Still a huge gap, but going from 12x to 5x is very significant. And when you're looking at actionable solutions, employers are looking for actionable solutions to address the racial wealth gap against student debt, and solving that student debt crisis is important for it. The other area of impact for us is mental and financial health. And I always share the story of people ask, Emeka, how did you get into the student loan space? You have an electrical engineering degree, you worked on Wall Street, why student loans? And I share the personal story that between business school for myself and medical school for my wife, who's a physician, we had over $400,000 in student loans. And I can tell you that you're mentally stressed when you have that much debt. I remember when we bought our home, the bank said, you can't put your wife's name on this loan because her debt to income ratio is too high, and there's a good chance that you're not going to get the loan. So we had to take her off of it. Saving for retirement, that had to go on pause, right? You have all these things that are happening. And so there are certain years where we could have really achieved that compounding interest that we missed out on. And I'll tell you that stress is income agnostic. We work with a lot of anchor institutions in the Philadelphia area. So we have, it's not uncommon for us to talk to a surgeon or somebody making a significant amount of money, but has, $1 million worth of debt. Or we're talking with an EVS staff that, has the same debt to income ratio. So it's something that stresses people and they're not bringing their best selves to work. And that obviously leads to loss of productivity. The other is attracting and retaining talent. And so again, when we work with a lot of anchor institutions, they're all struggling with how do we attract talent. We know 7 out of 10 coming to the workforce have student loans. We know that more than half of them would actually prefer an employer contribution to their student loans versus saving for retirement. Obviously, we prefer that employers do both, but that just shows you the mindset of a lot of the individuals entering the workforce. And the other is retaining talent. I think a common misconception that we come across when we talk to folks is that they think that the student debt crisis, the 1.74 trillion, is a Gen Z problem, it's a millennial problem, when the reality is that baby boomers had the second highest amount of student debt of any demographic. And that's because a lot of baby boomers went back to school during the Great Recession. And in addition, they took out loans for their children. So you have this compound effect. And these are the folks that obviously a lot of employers want to retain, especially within the anchor institutions that we work in, which are hospitals, universities, charter schools, because one of the biggest social determinants of health is continuity of care. And so if the health workers are leaving because they're taking opportunities where to really address that student debt, that's going to disrupt the local community in a very negative way. So really, those are the 4 areas that we look to work on with our solution and our impact.
I think it's fascinating when just the description that you gave across those 4 areas really shows all the intersections of problems that are persistent across what on the surface appears to just be paying student debt. And there's gender equality, there's also wealth equality. You mentioned social determinants of health, and so there's health equity. There are just so many components of what it means to be kind of a whole person in America that we're faced with, and a lot of those can be alleviated in some capacity just through this mechanism that you've developed. And so really excited to hear about the work that you're doing there. So I'd like to turn the questions a little bit more towards capital to learn a little bit about the types of capital that you've raised in the past, what you're presently seeking in terms of a capital raise, and what does the future look like in terms of your capital needs. Caitlin, either one who wants to take it first.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I can kick it off. So to date, we've mostly received planning grants from our local foundations in Detroit. So we've been able to support a lot of our pre-development that way, as well as hire a branding firm. So we're currently in the process of naming and creating sort of the interior schematic and plan for our build out. I will say that we've been able to partner very closely with a local CDFI called Invest Detroit. They're actually our property owner, and they developed the property. So through what we have in Detroit that's called the SNF, the Strategic Neighborhood Fund, they were able to completely white box the facility and partner with us now as the master tenants that will be intaking small businesses over the next few years. We have the ability in the back of the space to create a commercial kitchen, a very small micro footprint, and that's really what we're looking to raise additional capital for right now. So many of our entrepreneurs are operating out of their homes, out of their trunks on Instagram. And we think that we've heard it over the past 7 years that creating a shared commercial kitchen would get a lot of our businesses out of cottage food laws and allow them to take on some larger contracts with either grocery stores, restaurants, cafes, etc. And so that's really our next step. So we're at a place right now where we have enough capital raised to really launch a collaborative market, but we know that the best and highest use of some of the additional square footage that we have is this shared kitchen, which we know will earn revenue for our organization, as well as back to any investors that might want to contribute to the project that we're developing. And I'll also just mention that the way the space has been bifurcated into 2 actual bays of retail. And so we're going to be launching the market in one of them and doing sort of event rental in the other one in the short term, just to fulfill this need for finished and complete space in our geography. As I shared earlier, there's a high level of vacancy. We have a couple of colleges in our area, the University of Detroit Mercy, as well as Marygrove College, which was formerly Marygrove College, is now the Marygrove Conservancy. And there's a lot of space, but they're in these, institutional and university type settings, but we're right on the corridor, right located in the neighborhoods. And so we get a lot of requests, even in our co-working office space, for private event rental. And so in the short term, we'll be able to do that in the second bay of retail while we really prove our concept that this retail incubator is necessary for the developing corridor. And hopefully we'll be able to expand into the other bay over the next couple of years as we grow.
Thanks. And I'm not sure about the range of understanding from the audience, so I'm going to ask the question, can you explain exactly what a planning grant is?
Sure. So over the past 2 years, we have been working with the small business community, with our local residents in the surrounding neighborhoods to really understand what type of businesses are needed as this corridor develops. So as the community development organization, we're really stewarding and sort of shepherding resources to fulfill a shared dream of how the commercial corridor could redevelop itself to be fully inclusive and reflective of the needs and the wants of the community. So we've been able to go through, in my world, it's a very traditional planning process with our key stakeholders to make sure that our development is truly reflective and inclusive of what we need. And so just for a little bit of context as well, our businesses are 100% micro, which we've created our own definition in that they have less than 5 employees and they generate less than $100,000 annually. The majority of our businesses are solo entrepreneurs, and we are at about 90% African American and 70% women owned. And so the sort of concept that we're creating is going to be reflective of the needs of our small business population. And we're aiming to create a really low barrier to entry for those that want to test their products to market, but also create a low barrier of entry to shoppers in the neighborhood that want to support small Black-owned businesses.
Thank you. And just curious, from a future perspective, does that evolve over time? Do you see yourself in the same planning grant space, or does that change into a different level of capital funding?
Yeah, so we're moving out of the planning phase and definitely into implementation currently. Our goal is not to have businesses stay with us for more than probably 24 months. We recognize that there are a number of other opportunities for retail that are developing on our corridor. On our 2-block stretch, we have in the next 3 years, 4 developments that will include micro retail spaces. And so really through our adjacent programming, we're calling it the Market to Main Street model. We're looking to grow our businesses out of our shared space and hopefully into one of these larger geographic footprints on the corridor that they would be able to maintain and operate on their own. So it's really, we're at the very beginning stage of creating a pipeline that can hopefully sustain this corridor for years to come.
Thank you. And Emeka, I'll turn it over to you for the same question.
Yeah, so I think for us, we're 20 employees now at PeopleJoy, and we've built a sustainable business where the revenue that we get from our clients that we're servicing covers our working capital needs as far as day-to-day operations, paying salaries, rent, and so on and so forth. We've really spent the last few years working on building partnerships with a lot of the local anchor tenants in the greater Philadelphia area, and have gotten great feedback and a lot of success stories. So really our goal right now is growth capital, and how do we take our show on the road, so to speak, and expand our footprint nationally to essentially work in more cities with other anchor tenants, and by anchor tenants, I mean hospitals and universities, so on and so forth, in various cities around the country, and really looking at capital for that. Prior to us getting to this point, we were fortunate to work with some local impact investment funds such as Ben Franklin. I see some folks from Ben Franklin, hi Margaret, on the call today, Bronze Valley, as well as the Hurdle Fund, to help us sort of fill the gaps where we needed it. For example, quite recently with the Hurdle Fund, we were able to get our SOC 2 Type 1 certification, which is a security compliance a framework that's very important if you're working with enterprise clients, which we do. We're targeting companies that have 5,000 employees and up. Prior to that, our startup capital came from friends and family, like a lot of startups do. I was fortunate enough, this isn't my first time at the rodeo. This is the 3rd startup I've been a part of, 2nd of my own. So I was able to self-fund the initial getting PeopleJoy out the gate, which obviously I understand that a lot of entrepreneurs don't get that opportunity. So we've taken all types of capital from all types of people, but I would say impact investors is where we enjoy getting or working with the most, because we're both aligned with that triple bottom line and double bottom line, and they understand that sometimes it's not necessarily about the number of new users you've acquired in a year, but more about the impact that you've created. Make no mistake, I'm a capitalist at heart, and I'm, we obviously want to make a profit, but I think that you can make money and do good at the same time. And I think that's what really resonates with us and working with impact investors.
Yeah, I think that's key. Impact investing isn't philanthropic work. There is a return on the investment. And that's an important point for, I think, anyone who's considering impact investing to keep in mind, that there is a goal to see a return. And we know not many companies see returns, so we know the chips are stacked against you, but but you need the capital in order to see that change and to prove that out. So with that, I'm curious, Emeka, what some of the challenges are that you're facing in doing this work, whether it's raising the capital or the work of generating the revenues to grow the business.
Yeah, so great question. And it's I think for us at this stage, it's really about just distribution and scale. We've gotten to product market fit, which is in itself a challenge. And so I think the next step is, okay, once you've reached product market fit, how do you scale? To do that, you need resources, you need the right account executives and sales team involved, you need the right distribution partnerships. And that's our biggest focus right now, is because we know we have a great product and a great service. We also know that our competitors are not going to be sitting on their hands and waiting around for us to continue to capture market share. So, our biggest challenge is really taking advantage of this opportunity, this window in the market where we see that employers are really looking for solutions focused on wellness, especially with rising inflation. And if you want to retain talent, you can't just focus on giving them a higher salary. That's just not working in this environment. And so they're looking for cost-effective solutions to help their employees, which is what we offer. So it's about how do we get that awareness out there, that marketing, and really investing those dollars. So for us, that's going to require taking outside capital, right, to essentially extend and continue to grow the business, so that we're not losing our market share to our competitors, and we're continuing to reinvest in the product and the team, and providing a great service to our clients.
Thanks for that. And Caitlin, just circling back to you in the grant, the type of grants that you're leveraging, are there specific challenges that you face in that arena, in that space, or specifically in the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So I think one of the greatest challenges that we're up against is developing commercial buildings that have sat vacant for 2 or more decades. For the most part, we're squishing new construction into older shells. So we're completely rehabbing and gutting out these buildings, and we understand the need to preserve the street wall, and so we're not taking that down and doing completely new facades. But behind the facade, it's really a new construction project, and these take a lot of time. And the market in the neighborhood, the traditional real estate market, has not yet caught up to make these deals make sense. And so we have to work with partners that can provide that subsidy and really that expertise in terms of real estate development to get these projects even up and running. And so without that type of investment, these projects would be virtually impossible. And then to the next point is that as we're developing out this corridor, there is a need for really district-wide marketing campaigns and really wraparound service supports for the entire district to get people interested in shopping in Northwest Detroit, and not just shopping, downtown and midtown in our neighborhoods that are a little bit further along in terms of their economic resurgence and development, and not going to the suburbs. And so it takes, I think, a really long process of building momentum and getting community buy-in to get these projects up and running. And so we're definitely in it for the long game. And these projects are just very intricate and involve a lot of cooperation with partners across various sectors. We're definitely in a number of public-private partnerships with our local municipalities, with other economic development entities, to really layer investments in this neighborhood to make it make sense.
I think that's an important key in terms of layering investment. It usually takes not just one, but multiple approaches to how you finance your specific objectives and goals to meet the initiative. And so thanks for that. I just want to wrap up. I know we have about 10 more minutes before we move to Q&A. You have an audience before you, Caitlin, and I'm curious, what is it that you want investors to know about the work that you're doing and how they can get involved and support you.
Absolutely. So as I shared, we're playing a very long game here. And so the need for patient capital is greater than ever. We're seeing strides on the ground and economic resurgence happening. But I think to really see return on investment, we're going to be looking at 7 to 10 years. And so having the ability and the flexibility there to see these projects through and make sure that they are truthfully inclusive is a process that takes time and years. And also, I think, as a community development organization, we interface with a lot of residents, property owners, and business owners, which makes our entity and others like us very well positioned to re-grant dollars, which is something that we've done to small businesses. During the pandemic, we have the ability to receive dollars and then issue, applications to small businesses to support their immediate needs. So just a small example of this, when COVID hit, we were able to provide 7 restaurants with patio furniture so that they could take their operation outside. And so we have the ability to be, I'd say, really creative with some of our solutions. And then because we have relationships with the city, we were able to walk and really expedite the process for getting these restaurants permitted to be operating outdoors on the sidewalk. And so just a small example to say, think about or consider some of the small business like connectors that you might have in your ecosystem so that we can act as a liaison to some of the people who need dollars the most to grow and remain active as we're shifting into this post-COVID financial landscape.
Thank you for that. I think it's really the combination, right? There's the connections, the social capital that's needed, the capital itself, the knowledge around how to use it once you have it, and getting people from that planning phase into that growth phase that I think are so important. Emeka, please share with us, if you have the floor, investors and the alike on the call, what is it that you would like for them to know about what it takes to help you be successful?
Yeah, first I would just say, we operate in the wellness industry, which is a $4.2 trillion market. When you look at the workplace wellness segment, which is really the sandbox that we play in, about 47.5 billion, a little over that, and growing at about between 5 to 7% a year. So there's just a huge opportunity for wellness, just in light of the pandemic, just inflation, just where people working from home. We know that we always tell employers a one-size-fits-all benefit ends up being a one-size-fits-none. So first, I just want to say the tremendous opportunity from a financial perspective in this space and why we're excited about that. And then I would want to let investors know just our solution and approach, the uniqueness of it. We're equal parts technology and service. We have 4 products on our platform. The reason why we sell 4 products is a CHRO at a large employer here in Philly once told me, point solutions are okay, but platforms are interesting. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to offer different things, different benefits for different employers. So we have 2 sides of our platform. We have a giving side where an employer can make a matching contribution to an employee's student loans. The same way your employer might make a match to your 401k or your defined contribution plan, works in the same vein. It's also tax exempt, courtesy of the CARES Act as of 2020. And then we have a tuition reimbursement where employers can help facilitate reimbursement for continuing education, the upskilling of their employee base. The other side of our platform is an advisory platform where we're helping employees navigate complex programs such as the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, it was launched in 2007 during the Bush administration, and they saw there was going to be a shortage of employees, of teachers, doctors, nurses, really our public servants, those who work at 501c3s, those who work for local governments. And so they instituted this program to say, if you work at a nonprofit for a period of 10 years, you're going to be able to get your loans forgiven tax-free. Unfortunately, the program has to date had about a 99% rejection rate, and that's just because it's complicated. There's a lot of steps involved and a lot of confusion with that, and because of that, it's lost its ability to retain talent. And so now I, as a nonprofit, have to compete with for-profits that have, unlimited sums of money or publicly traded, so on and so forth, for the same level of talent. I no longer have this advantage of saying, you come work for me, you get your loans forgiven. And so what we do is restore faith in the program by helping guiding people through that process. I call the best way to describe it is TurboTax for student loans. Just to give you a case in point, we launched with a local anchor tenant in Philly, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And by restoring faith in that program, by once again giving their employees who have student debt confidence that they're going to get their loans forgiven, not only were we able to help their employees get close to $3 million of loans forgiven last year, we actually did a case study and saw that there was a 5% reduction in employee turnover when you compared our clients to their general population. And that translates to millions of dollars in savings for their bottom line. So again, a very unique approach by just helping their employees tap into federal dollars that are out there, but they just have difficulty accessing. And the last product that we have is a college financial planning tool where we had employees that came to us and said, you just help me say, you just help PeopleJoy, you just help me get $200,000 of public service loan forgiveness. Can you help my child with choosing the right college, right? And so we built this calculator that essentially helps the children of employees compare, the cost of college. They can compare Drexel versus Temple and what's the return on investment, what's the average student make coming a year out of school to 30 years out of school, and make really objective decisions. So they're no longer making choices, based on the school colors or how cool the gym is, but really based on actual, what the financial outcomes are going to be if they go to that school. And so it's a really creative approach, equal parts technology and service. And the impact, again, is measured not only in terms of, look, we've grown really rapidly in a short amount of time, but also in terms of those things that I talked about, those metrics around addressing the racial wealth gap, the gender wealth gap, as well as employee retention. That's really, we work from home. So as far as the social and environment footprint, we're not having folks have to drive in and things like that during the day. Everybody works from home. So I like to say we're sustainable and environmentally responsible from that regard as well.
Thank you for that. So I have one more question, but before I ask my question, I just want to pose to the audience that if you have questions, we're going to enter our Q&A session. So please get your thoughts together on your question. I'm not sure we could get some guidance on if they're going into the chat or if we'll be fielding them through voice. So just start thinking about your questions.
Add them in the chat.
Okay, add them in the chat. So my question, Emeka, is really to understand both for Emeka and Caitlin. Do you have an open fund at this point, a mechanism for investors to invest? Or are you seeking funds?
Yeah, we're always, for us, it's all about the right strategic partners. So we're not seeking, capital for the sake of capital. We're seeking partners that could either help us tap into different distribution networks, or really can help us either from an operational standpoint or sales and marketing standpoint, grow the business and take it to the next level. So we're always actively seeking partners in that regard.
Awesome. So partnerships as it relates to operations, marketing, the right capital, the right partnerships, it sounds like. Very well. Caitlin, what about you?
Absolutely. We are actively fundraising to get our storefront launched by the end of the year. And we're also looking to develop and launch an e-commerce site. So much of our work is really place-based and our network is very hyper-local. But we understand also that dollars are plentiful outside of the city of Detroit as well. And so we're looking to build out an e-commerce platform so that we can plug our businesses into that as an additional way for them to really scale and think about their businesses from through a different lens and really seize all of the opportunities that are available.
Great. And with that, I will pause to see if we have any questions from the audience.
I always have questions, and I started to type it, but I only got halfway through. So if I can ask it, maybe I'll do it that way. But the title of this session, what I really liked, was talking about a spectrum of capital. And I always use my hands to talk about this because, you know, we have different, you spoke well to people have different return expectations. People also have different reward expectations, and there's nothing wrong with getting a grant to do something that someone's doing, like the Hurdle Fund, because they deliberately want to use philanthropic dollars to do something, and then to stack these. I think I understood, Caitlin, from you, grant debt. I'm not sure if you have investment dollars too, and Emeka explained that he has investors and he got this sweet grant too. I was wondering if either of you has any other thoughts about that kind of capital stack, and if either you or anybody else on the call has other ideas of other, we know what straight up investment looks like, but other kinds of creative approaches like the Hurdle Fund for that sort of boost for small businesses. So, you know, mostly I care about small businesses in Philadelphia, but small businesses anywhere is fine.
I'm happy to, I have a thought, but I will start with Caitlin and Emeka if you have a thought.
Sure, I can just jump in really quickly. So to date, the Live 6 Alliance has not taken on any private investors. We will be looking to do that, but we're actually building out our operating model as we speak, understanding how many businesses can be a part of our storefront and sort of what is the percentage that we will be earning off of a lot of the back end and overhead that we will be assuming. And so once we have that really crystal clear, we will be reaching out to the state of Michigan's impact investing hub to see if there is any potential for including private investors into our ever evolving capital stack.
Yeah, I think, you know, and great question. You know, non-dilutive capital is really obviously valuable to startups and entrepreneurs, especially in that, I want to say that sort of between that 10,000 to $500,000 range, where obviously going out and raising capital takes time, and can pull you off of just sales and growth and things like that. And so platforms like the Hurdle Fund are really helpful, right? Because it allows you to really address the major pain point, a short-term pain point that isn't necessarily tied to revenue per se, but is in the immediate gratification of it, but it's going to help you, you know, longer term. So for us, again, it was that SOC 2 compliance. We were getting to a point where we were applying to larger institutions, you know, federal, local government, so on and so forth. And, you know, it wasn't enough to just say, hey, we're built on an AWS tech stack, right? You have to show that you're really compliant. And so for us, going out and raising investment capital, let's say, build our to get that certification, probably they would have said no, right? But I think having these economic impact funds that see the value of that and understand that this is what you need to get there was really helpful for us, because I can now use the capital that freed up to go out and go to conferences and go out and drive sales and things like that of that nature. So it just allowed us to really, again, when you know, do both in a short amount of time. And I think that, coupled with obviously larger rounds of funding to go out and hire a bigger team and grow the business.
And Margaret, I would just add, similar to Emeka, what's interesting to me is how important it is that even though a dollar is a dollar, very focused dollars can help businesses in different ways. And so I really like the Hurdle Fund for the reason that Emeka lined out, because it is specifically there to help him, you know, meet this certification need and remove that hurdle, and then be able to move on to other, either other growth in the organization or other capital needs to serve other purposes. And so oftentimes what I find is helpful is when companies or capital providers can help outline the use of capital And, you know, to some that may be restrictive, but I think to others it's very helpful. For instance, Founders First, CDC, our nonprofit, has a grant called the Job Creators Grant, and it's specifically focused on job creation. And the goal is to be able to deploy capital, not to hire someone with the capital, but to be a seed into what is needed in order to help create jobs in the economy. We know how helpful that is to the business itself, and then it's also helpful to the economy. And it just helps people to focus around what they can use those dollars for. But I find that when you have grants specifically that have very specific purpose, it's helpful for business owners to clarify all of the many components of what they're running in the business, often wearing many hats, to say, here's dollars that I can focus towards this area or that area. And then as it relates to the capital stack, you know, Founders First Capital Partners is its alternative capital provider. And so I think the other important note is that companies need different types of capital at different stages of their life cycle. And sometimes they circle through their various needs of capital. And I find it interesting when I meet $1 million companies, $5 million companies, $10 million companies that are still seeking grant dollars because they know how valuable that $1 is, especially if it's free. And so some people I see, they kind of wear out on the grants over time, and they're seeking other forms of capital, maybe non-dilutive, traditional financing or things like that. But usually there's a time and a place, and when companies understand the time and the place for the capital needs that they have, it really can help them create the right capital stack over time. Are there other questions? Thank you for your question, Margaret. Melina?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. Thanks. And this is a question for anyone who feels that they have any insight to offer. I'm thinking about in that spectrum of capital, debt especially, and working with CDFIs. We have a fairly robust CDFI network in Philadelphia, but I'm personally just getting acquainted with understanding what they all do. It seems like each one has a different specialty, has different products that are available, has different interests, and probably has certain compliance issues that they have to subscribe to. So Caitlin, when you were talking about connecting with Invest Detroit, I'm curious about that process, how you were able to find that CDFI in particular, and if it feels like there's sort of a central hub where you can go to figure out which one to work with. And Emeka, I'm curious, in your experience, if you've had success or challenges working with CDFIs in Philadelphia and how that's kind of helped you to bridge that hole between we're just starting out, we're not quite ready for equity, to being ready for equity. And Tiara, I'm sure you have many thoughts on the subject as well. So thanks.
Absolutely, I can jump in really quickly. So Detroit also has a very robust CDFI committee. We have a CDFI coalition, and they have put out for us a very comprehensive grid of what each CDFI focuses in on. And so Invest Detroit is really focused in on corridor growth and development. And then they have an initiative, New Economy initiative, NEI, that's focused in on the small business side of things. I know for our facility next door, I'll be reaching out to another CDFI called IFF that focuses in on grocery store development across the country. And so I would see, if I'm not sure where you're located, but generally there's a coalition in your city, and they can help direct you to understand which CDFIs fund which aspect of this work. I've worked for a couple of them, so I had a sort of easier inroad, but even if you just start connecting with anyone from any CDFI, they'll probably be very open with you about which direction or which ones to reach out to.
Yeah, so Melina, I haven't had any experience working with CDFIs. So we've raised convertible debt initially through investors and some equity financing as well. So not a lot to say there, but what I will say is when I am looking at sort of partners that could help us with capital, there's I tend to sort of look for ones that make it a little easier. So in terms of if I'm going someplace and it's like 50 pages that I have to go through and I've got to give like blood samples and things like that, it gets a little frustrating. And I understand that the need for having filters in place and things like that to make it easier for the decision makers to decide who to invest in. But I would just say like entrepreneurs are just going to go where it's easiest, right? In terms, because we've got to juggle between like running our companies and growing and things like that. And so if it starts to get too onerous and cumbersome, it can be discouraging. But like, you know, outside of the convertible debt, which converts to equity, you know, obviously my goal here is try to get people out of debt. So taking on, you know, borrowing money is also always something that we always, you know, want to look at, just making sure that the revenue is coming in to cover it and things like that before we take on, you know, those sorts of capital.
And I'll just close by saying that I think you know, everything has its place, and CDFIs certainly fit into that. I definitely like the flexibilities that CDFIs offer over traditional banking. But you know, depending upon where your company is and stage of company, CDFIs may or may not be right for you. But I generally find that their geographic, demographic focus in helping the local economy is really key. And so oftentimes it's important that when no one else is able to help, CDFIs are able to really step in when that help is needed. I want to thank everyone for the great questions and attentiveness. I've enjoyed the panel. I want to thank Caitlin and Emeka for your comments and sharing more about your specific initiatives. I will turn it back over now to Megan to close us out.
Thanks, Tiara. Yeah, thank you so much, Tiara, Emeka, and Caitlin, and for everyone joining. As I mentioned, and you know, this is being recorded, and so we'll share it out within the next 24 hours, and feel free to share with anybody that you think might be interested, and we'll also share with folks. We know we had a little bit of trouble getting people in through the right link today, so we apologize for that, but we'll be sharing out that recording soon. So thank you again for our panelists. If anybody, again, is interested in learning more about ImpactPHL and what we're doing, feel free to reach out to me at megan@impactphl.org. I did just want to call two quick things to your attention. ImpactPHL is hosting in partnership with SOCAP, the Total Impact Summit in Philadelphia, May 1st and 2nd. Our theme this year is investing in people, planet, and place. It should be a great 2 days of education, action, and other opportunities for investors. So please join us. If you would like to join us, we have a code. This is especially the first folks seeing this. Impact 23 will get you $500 off the summit ticket. So feel free to do that there. You can do that on our website at ImpactPHL/TIS23. And then finally, if Meg wants to go through, we also launched this year Opt Impact, which is a platform for investors to understand what impact initiatives exist in the greater Philadelphia region, understand when they are raising capital, connect with co-investors and peers, share due diligence, and monitor overall regional activity. There are close to 280 million in investable opportunities on the platform now, and we're actively continuing to work to get more on there in terms of funds and businesses for direct investments. So please feel free, if you don't already have an account, you can sign up at optimpact.org. It's free, and we'd love to have you there and build out the ecosystem further. So thank you all once again, and enjoy the rest of your morning. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.